My name is Khalid Mahmood. Today's topic is industrial farming, health pandemics, and food shortages. My guest this week is once again Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. She's a medical doctor and has postgraduate degree in neurology, a second postgraduate degree in human nutrition. She's the author of 5 books. Her first book was published in 2004, Gut and Psychology Syndrome, Natural Treatment for Autism, A.D.H.D, Dyslexia, Dyspraxia, Depression, and Schizophrenia. Her second book was published in 2007, Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, What Really is Heart Disease and What We Can Do to Prevent and Even Reverse It. Her third book, Explained, Vegetarianism Explained, Making an Informed Decision was published in 2017. And her latest book was published in 2020, Gut and Physiology Syndrome, Natural Treatment for Allergies, Autoimmune Illness, Gut Problems, Arthritis, Fatigue, Hormonal Problems, Neurological Disease, and more. Dr. Natasha, welcome to Restoring the Mind for the second time.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
This is our second interview. Your expertise is in health and foods and the effects of foods on the human body. I want to begin by asking you about the root cause of the problem. Am I correct in understanding that, in your opinion, I'm putting my words in your mouth, in your opinion, industrial farming has done far more damage to the human health than anything else? Can you explain a bit more about this industrial farming and how it's related to our pharmaceutical industry, and what's the relationship between the industrial farming and pharmaceutical industry, and what do you think the solutions should be?
Well, before the Second World War in the 1940s, the whole planet was organic. Just think about that. Many people can't even imagine such a thing. And I have had a chance to meet a few Brazilian people recently. They've never known anything else but chemical food. They don't know organics. They didn't even know such term, organic. They asked me, what do you mean by organic? You see, so today large populations of the world don't know that there is any other food but the food produced with chemicals and industrial agricultural practices. Before the Second World War, the whole planet ate organic, if you think about it. There was no other food. And during the Second World War, chemical companies, which were funded by many wealthy and powerful people of the Western world, were producing chemicals for German war machine and the concentration camps. When the war ended, suddenly these companies found themselves out of business. And what they've done, they've repurposed those chemicals for agriculture. They changed names, they changed formulas here and there, and they started using these chemicals for agriculture. And they have made a plan at that point, those wealthy people who own the whole industry, they made a plan that majority of humanity in several decades will be eating chemical food. And that organic food will only be available, real, clean food, the food that Mother Nature intended for us. Only small populations in the world will be able to eat that food. It will be available only to those who are wealthy and to those who can access these kind of foods, while majority of the population will be eating chemical foods produced by industrial agriculture. And you might say that they have achieved that target for majority of humanity. These meetings with Brazilian people and people from other countries show that they don't know any other food. They just know chemically produced foods. The next target that they now made, and not actually now, they made it in the 70s. That was the wealthy elite of the world who are in charge of industrial agriculture. The same people own pharmaceutical industry, medical industry, Western governments. They rule Western governments. They write agricultural policies and health policies for Western governments. And they own all other industries. Today, actually, 3 financial hubs own everything, it seems, and people who own those hubs are in charge of the whole industry of the world, it seems. So it is within the interest of these people to promote their chemicals and promote their practices, because these are businesses, these are business-minded people, and the business is all about profit at any cost, at any expense. So in the 70s, they have made another plan. They have patted themselves on the head, saying that we've achieved what we wanted to achieve with the chemical agriculture. Now the next plan will be that in the next few decades, real meat, real eggs, and real milk will not be available for the majority of humanity. They will become so expensive and so rare that majority of humanity will never be able to obtain them or will not be able to afford them. And instead, they will be eating synthetic meat, synthetic milk, and synthetic eggs. And they're marching ahead with this plan. Synthetic meat is already in supermarkets. They are perfecting now synthetic milk formulation, and they're perfecting the technology for making synthetic eggs. They already have formulas on the market. So this is what capitalism and global corporations want to do. That is their plan. So and considering that they have achieved the aim of feeding most of humanity with chemically produced foods, paints a picture for us what will happen with the synthetic meat and synthetic eggs and synthetic milk, that they will be marching ahead. In order to prepare for this change, they have invested billions of whatever currency they use, American dollars, British pounds, any other currency. They've invested literally hundreds of billions into these new technologies. And they are licking their lips, waiting for huge profits to come from these technologies. In preparation for release of synthetic meat and synthetic milk and synthetic eggs, they have been maligning natural meat, natural milk, and natural eggs for decades. They have been paying armies of so-called scientists to produce so-called scientific studies for them, which they can shake into everybody's face, saying that meat causes every disease, eggs cause every disease, milk causes every disease, they're bad for us, we should not eat them, it is cruel to take these things from animals, we should stop doing that, and generally speaking, all of us should become vegetarian and vegan.
So that's where this thing about eggs and egg yolk is actually bad for the heart and the cholesterol and etc. That's where it come from.
Exactly.
From these same people.
I have written a book on this subject called Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, one of my books, where I explain what really causes heart disease. Because meat, milk, and eggs do not cause heart disease. Cholesterol, natural cholesterol that Mother Nature gave us, and not animal fats, do not cause heart disease or diabetes or Alzheimer's disease or any other disease that they claim that they cause. All of this is...
You have written in one of your book that people should not be having all these statins. Okay.
Well, if you would like to talk about cholesterol, I'll explain about cholesterol in more detail.
Well, while you mentioned cholesterol, I thought, just to add in this bit in so that people can understand that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Cholesterol is one of the most important molecules for our human bodies. We are made out of this molecule to a large degree. Your brain, almost 40% of your brain is made out of cholesterol. The other 40% are made out of saturated fats. The rest is made out of proteins and other substances. Without cholesterol, your brain cannot function. We cannot think, we cannot learn, we cannot memorize anything. And it is low cholesterol in the blood that causes Alzheimer's disease. It is one of the major causes of dementia, because the brain literally shrinks, because large percent of it is made out of cholesterol. Without cholesterol, your immune system will not function at all. You become susceptible to various infections. These are true scientific facts that I have outlined in my book, and there are hundreds of references there for scientifically minded people of real, true scientific studies, because there is real science in the world and it is working very hard. The problem is the kind of science that the majority of the population hears through media, through mainstream media, through newspapers, television, and so on, Somebody paid for those advertisements and somebody paid for educating the population. Educating the population is a very expensive business. So somebody with a very large wallet wants you to believe that what's written in newspapers and what is told on the TV screens. So this is the rigged science, the commercial science that somebody paid for. So let's come back to cholesterol. From cholesterol, vitamin D is made. It's a hormone. We cannot live without it. And it is produced in the skin from cholesterol when we sunbathe, when we expose ourselves to the sun. The sun has been maligned as well. And the sun does not cause skin cancer at all. That is a scientific fact. Skin cancer is caused by the same things that cause all other cancers in the human body, and that is chemicals, radiation, and other products of our industrial activities on this planet. So from cholesterol, all steroid hormones are made, and these are your adrenal hormones, all your sex hormones, and other hormones in the body. So when a person has low levels of cholesterol in their body, they cannot respond to stress appropriately. They have nervous breakdowns, they fly off the handle, they become irrational, they become aggressive. When they're under pressure, these people, they simply cannot cope with any pressure or any stress. And their sexual development becomes abnormal, their libido disappears, and they cannot procreate. They cannot produce healthy children, these people, because in order to produce healthy children, you need sex hormones. You need that part of your body working very well. And if you no cholesterol, no sex hormones, basically. Lots and lots of other functions are fulfilled by cholesterol in your body. Every cell in your body, to a large degree, is made out of cholesterol. It's a major building material in the human body, and they cannot function without cholesterol and without saturated fats. That is why Mother Nature equipped our bodies with a factory manufacturing cholesterol for us all the time. And that factory is in your liver. It's a very efficient factory. There are people in this world who cannot produce cholesterol, in whom this factory doesn't work very well in the liver. And these are people who have serious nutritional deficiencies and people who have toxicity in your body. These are drug addicts, alcoholics, people with anemia, people with serious nutritional deficiencies, and people who have taken a lot of chemicals into their bodies. Because this factory in your liver has a long biochemical chain of manufacturing cholesterol step by step. And at every step, cofactors are required, certain nutrients, minerals, vitamins, enzymes, proteins. And every step in that biochemical chain can be blocked by chemicals, by toxins, toxic chemicals. So people who are toxic and people who have nutritional deficiencies, often that machine doesn't work in their liver. And as a result, the first thing that happens with these people, their personality changes. They become short-tempered, aggressive, violent, impatient. They cannot learn. Their memory is poor in these people. And there was a fascinating research conducted in the 80s in American prisons, where a group of researchers have studied violent offenders, murderers, and other people who committed very violent, grievous crimes. What they found that 85% of these people had low blood cholesterol. That machine in their liver was broken and it was not working. That is why these people were violent, and that is why they murdered somebody. That is why they committed those crimes. There is no way of reducing blood cholesterol with food. That is a fallacy that has been promoted by our medical industry and by all those wealthy people who are behind all of this propaganda for decades. No way of reducing blood cholesterol with food. You can eat no cholesterol at all whatsoever. You can eat no fats at all. Your liver will just have to work harder to compensate and to produce all that cholesterol and all those saturated fatty acids that your body needs, your brain requires, your immune system requires, your hormone production requires, and lots of other functions in the body require. But the effective way, the most effective way of reducing your blood cholesterol is by taking drugs, pharmaceutical drugs called statins. It's a whole group of drugs. There are various brand names, but most of them finish with this bit saying statin, lovastatin, another statin. So what these statins do, they break that factory in your liver. They stop it. So your liver cannot produce cholesterol. And as a result, your blood level of cholesterol goes down. And as a result, your brain starts melting, and you develop dementia, and your personality changes, and you become intolerant and aggressive and violent, and your memory suffers, and your ability to learn suffer, and lots of other problems happen. Your immune system stops functioning very well, you become susceptible to infections, and lots of other things happen. Talking about infections, it is now a fact, a proven fact, that large percent, vast majority of people who get hospital infections, MRSA and other hospital infections that killed a lot of people in the hospitals, they got this infection because they were put on statins. Because doctors automatically put pretty much everyone above the age of 40, now even younger people, on statins as soon as you're admitted to the hospital. You're not even asked any questions. They don't even measure your blood cholesterol anymore. They just automatically put you on statins. That impairs your immune function. Your immune system cannot protect you anymore as a result, and you become susceptible to hospital infections. That's why we have this problem in the hospitals. So this is just one example of what cholesterol does and what statins do.
What I see here problem is that a lot of people are mentally kind of been brainwashed, and when they go to the GP and the GP tells them that your cholesterol level is high and they want to put you on the statins, they actually believe it. And now a large majority of the people actually believe that their cholesterol levels are high and they need the statins. I mean, at the moment when you go to the GP says, oh, your cholesterol level is high and you are at risk of heart attack, and you should take it. Okay. So
Well,
what should people do if they are on statins?
Yes, doctors are soldiers in an army. They follow orders. Their job is
If somebody is on statins, what should they do?
their job is to sell drugs, and statins have been promoted. It is a #1 profit maker for the pharmaceutical industry. Statins, #1. It makes trillions for pharmaceutical industry. That is why pharmaceutical reps do their utter best to educate doctors. Educate in brackets, brainwash doctors that statins are the best thing ever, and everybody should be receiving them, and they're going to produce statins for small children, for the whole population of the planet. So, first of all, without cholesterol, no healing can happen in your body. Whether you had a trauma, whether you had an operation, your tissues were cut and they need to be healed, whether you've been to a dentist and tissues are damaged in your mouth, so a lot of healing has to happen there. Whatever damage, or you went through a stressful period in your life, stress damages a lot in the body, damages a lot of tissues in the body. So in order to heal, your body requires large amounts of cholesterol. So whatever tissue, whatever cells are damaged in your body, they will immediately send a signal to your liver, I need cholesterol, large amounts. So the liver starts that factory, manufactures cholesterol, packages it appropriately, because cholesterol is a fat-soluble substance. Your blood is water-based. So cholesterol has to be appropriately packaged into these low-density lipoproteins called LDLs. And only in that form they can be then thrown by the liver into the blood, and the blood then delivers these shuttles full of cholesterol to the place which needs healing, which got damaged and needs healing. So whenever you need healing, if you've had a difficult period of time, if you were under stress, under trauma, or you had something else, or you've got chronic inflammation going on in your body, maybe you've got a chronic disease going on in your body, maybe you have an autoimmune illness, maybe you've got arthritis, maybe you've got migraines, maybe you've got rheumatoid arthritis, maybe you've got something else going in your body, behind which is a chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation causes a lot of damage, so your body has to heal. And not only healing requires a lot of cholesterol, but inflammation itself consumes large amounts of cholesterol too, to function appropriately. So your liver will be working very hard, manufacturing lots of cholesterol, putting it in the blood, and the blood will be delivering all that healing cholesterol to those places of damage. So your blood level of cholesterol will be high. The last thing you want to do is interfere with that. That is why what I recommend to people, do not test for cholesterol. Whatever blood level of cholesterol you have is the right blood level of cholesterol for you at that moment in your life. Do not allow any doctor to bully you into testing for cholesterol. Do not test. Because if you allow a doctor to do that to you, then the doctor will start bullying you into taking statins, scaring you, putting you into fear, and so on. So all these tests they just lead to anxiety, and they lead to prescriptions of statins, which damage everybody's health.
Okay, going back to the industrial farming, okay, with the industrial farming, now we are actually facing food shortages. Okay, people don't grow their own foods anymore, and there's no organic foods, hardly any available. Well, there's not much available in even the other type of food. What should people do? What are your predictions? I mean, how these food shortages will play out, and what should people do to secure their food?
Well, the lie that has been given to all of us by the governments and by the media, which serves the wealthy of this world, is that our industrial agriculture feeds the world. They even have a slogan, we must feed the world. So, which means we need all these chemicals, we need to destroy all our soils, we need to, destroy nature because we must feed the world. The truth is, that's a lie. The truth is 75%, from 75 to 85, according to different sources, scientific sources, are not fed by industrial agriculture. They come from subsistence farming. They come from populations in the world which cannot afford industrial agriculture, who have their own garden, have a goat in the garden, have their own chickens, and they live on a subsistence level. 75 to 85% of humanity are fed this way. And this is organic food, real food. There are lots of real farms in the Western world. Every country has, UK has got hundreds of real organic farms, really good farms. And the governments make their lives very difficult with their regulations and their meddling, because the governments in the Western world do not support organic farming, true organic farming. They support industrial agricultural complex, because they give them subsidies, and all the legislations and policies are designed to support industrial farming. Because agricultural policies of every Western government are written by agrochemical companies, by those all-powerful people who own all the businesses in the world. That's where it's all coming from. So governments in the Western world make life of these farmers very difficult. They do not give them any help whatsoever. And the only farmers who survive, truly survive, are the ones who have a strong customer base. That is why I tell everybody, find these farmers and buy food directly from them. Not only you will provide your family with real quality food, which bring you good health, but you will also be supporting a good person who loves his soil, loves his animals, loves his plants, loves his birds, he loves his farm. And people like that will be very happy to welcome you and visit their farm, because they've got nothing to hide. There are no refrigerators full of steroids and antibiotics that they give to their animals. There are no bags of chemicals lying about. They're perfectly happy to welcome you. So the first place to go to is a farmer's market. Every town has a farmer's market. Or if you live in a rural area, I'm sure there's a town nearby where there is a farmer's market on a particular day. And talk to these farmers. Take their contact details. Ask them, can I visit your farm? And then on a weekend, put your family in the car, take your dog, and go and have a lovely day on a farm. Spend the day out on a farm, visiting a farm like that, or visiting a few farms. And once you've established these contacts, start buying everything directly from those farmers. Because what we all have to do, if health is our aim, and if health of our planet is our aim, we all must stop buying food in supermarkets. Everything on the shelves of supermarkets comes from industrial agrochemical complex. It is full of chemicals. It is full of practices which damage human health and damage our planet and damage soils. You're supporting industrial agriculture with every penny that you spend in a supermarket. Organic label in supermarkets cannot be trusted. For the last 10 years, that's been a fact now. Because these companies, 10 years ago, maybe even longer now, realized that people want real food. They don't want their chemicals, they want organic food. So organic sector was growing and they wanted a piece of that pie. They wanted that money. So they, of course, went directly to their stooges, to the Western governments, changed all the legislations around organics, and now they are producing so-called organic food. It is not organic. We now have so-called organic pesticides and practices that have no place in real organics. And because these large agrochemical companies can produce so-called organic food much cheaper than a real organic producer can do, real organic farmers have been going out of business. They simply cannot compete with this false organic. So you cannot trust organic label in a supermarket. There is nothing in a supermarket that you really want to buy. You want to buy your food from real farmers directly. Yes, it's a bit of work, no doubt, but what I recommend to my patients in cities in particular, form groups. I put my patients in touch with each other. So they form a group, and once they found these real farmers, they create a rota. So one family drives this weekend and brings food for everyone, for the whole group, so people can pop around to their apartment and pick up their bits and pieces. Next week, somebody else does that. The week after, somebody else does that. And when the group becomes big enough, speak to all your friends and family, convert them all to eating this real, beautiful food. And once the group is big enough, a farmer will be very happy to deliver to one place in the city where the whole group can then pick up their produce. So all it takes is just a bit of organization rather than just mindlessly going to a supermarket. On top of that, what you need to understand that new science of biophysics, which is studying energy and studying nuclear and atomic dimensions of food, they're telling us that food is information. Every time you eat, you take into your body information. Information has a vibration, and vibration has a frequency. What kind of frequency does food in a supermarket vibrate? It comes from places where animals are suffering. They're locked up in a prison. Animals and birds, Mother Nature created them to live outdoors on a pasture, organic pasture. Not a field seeded with some hybrid grass and sprayed with chemicals. Not at all. No, real organic pasture with more than 60 grasses and herbs growing in a mixture, under the sunlight, in the open. Because cows and goats and sheep and pigs, they must be on pasture. They eat a lot of grass, and that is their main food. Pigs need to live in a forest because they root. They dig for worms, for grubs, for mushrooms, for roots, for various other things, and they eat a lot of grass, pigs. Chickens eat a lot of grass. Where do you think the color in an egg yolk comes from? The yellow-orangey color. It comes from carotenoids in herbs and grasses that chickens eat in abundance. Where does the color comes in a yolk from an egg in a supermarket? It comes from a synthetic dye that's been added to the feed of the chicken. Which egg is going to give you good health? Synthetic dye or the one full of carotenoids? Of course, the natural egg from pasture. So chickens, turkeys, and other birds must be on pasture. Cows and other animals must be on pasture. But because our industrial agriculture makes the bulk of its profit from growing plants, generally speaking, for industrial agriculture, plant growing is the most productive and profitable activity. It's profitable for them to grow grains, beans, sugar beet, rapeseed, soya, all of those things, because they've got machines, they've got chemicals, they've got hybrids. It works for them. It's profitable, it's easy, and one man can serve thousands of acres. You don't need a lot of labor. And very soon even that man will be replaced by robots. We already have robotic machinery that drives itself, basically without a human behind it. So, but producing meat, milk, and eggs is unprofitable and painful and difficult and expensive for the industrial farmer. Because these animals and birds should be on pasture, instead they're taken off pasture, they put into prisons where they don't see the light of day, they never see sunlight. So as a result, they're fed food inappropriate for their physiology. They're fed grain and genetically modified soya. Animals should not be eating grain. Cows are not designed to eat grain. I'm an organic farmer. I have a house cow. When my grass goes to seed, my cow stops eating it because she knows that that seed, that grain, will make her sick. She refuses to eat it. Animals know this. Where animals which are locked in prisons, they're not given any choice. They don't see any grass. They're given grain, overproduced grain, because industrial agriculture overproduces grain every year. They are dumping grain into Atlantic Ocean because they've made all the profit on it, on the subsidies that the government gave them, and they've got no market for that grain. They are dumping it in the Atlantic Ocean. I have a scientific paper from 2013 where it's been assessed and it's been published that industrial agriculture of the Western world alone produced enough grain to feed 11 billion people in 2013.
Wow.
We only have 7 billion on the planet. They are overproducing grain by raping our soil, by pumping every last bit of nutrition out of it, by polluting and poisoning the planet. And then they feed that overproduced grain to the poor, unfortunate animals and birds who get sick from this grain. And then they blame those animals and birds for eating it. The poor things have no choice. They're locked up in a prison and not given any other food. It's a choice between starving or eating what you're given, basically. That is what's happening. And yet our governments, through our media, are telling us that we're not producing enough. We need to plow more. We need more chemicals. We need to pull our green belts around cities. Look at those poor, starving children in Africa. Those poor, starving children in Africa are starving because of politics and unfair distribution of food around the world, not because we're not producing enough food. Americans are wasting, this is a fact, they're wasting 60% of their food. Europeans wasting 50% of their food. A fraction of that wasted food will be enough to feed the whole of Africa. But it's just unfair distribution of energy and food around the planet. That is why those children in Africa are starving. And they're being used mercilessly by advertisers and corporations and media to force people in this world to give up their rights and to tolerate the appalling agricultural practices that are being used. And all of this is done in order to produce profit for agrochemical complex. That is the only purpose of it. And because the agrochemical complex makes the bulk of its profit from growing plant matter, while animal husbandry, their model of animal husbandry, where the poor animals and birds are locked up in prisons called CAFOs, it's unprofitable and it's difficult because they get sick from eating grain. They get sick from standing in their own excrements all day long in a cage, basically, of not being able to move, not being able to do anything. And poor chickens are sitting in cages in there, so they get all sick. So as a result, they have to be given lots of expensive antibiotics, expensive steroids, lots of other chemicals. A large percent of them die every day from diseases and problems. So of course it's unprofitable and it's difficult. That is why they want to get rid of animal husbandry altogether. On top of that, they have been working for decades on producing synthetic meat, synthetic milk, synthetic eggs. So the push for vegetarianism and veganism in the world comes from industrial agrochemical complex. They will be in paradise if the whole planet will become vegan. They will have so much profit because producing plants is far more profitable for them than doing animal husbandry. They'll be absolutely delighted. So this propaganda for vegetarianism and veganism...
That is not a natural food for the humans, is it, though?
Absolutely not. This propaganda is based on emotions and ignorance and manipulation. Because, you know, somebody very clever said, I don't remember who said it, But propaganda in liberal democracy is what a bludgeon is in tyranny. Propaganda is the #1 most powerful weapon in liberal democracy.
True.
Brainwashing people. Media exists exactly for that purpose. To brainwash the population, to plant ideas into their heads, to convince them of things which are profitable for those who own the media. And they're not just using plain propaganda. They're now using psychotronic methods. There is a psychotronic weaponry designed. So-called scientists have been working on it for decades now. There are psychotronic weapons. What it is, from the screen of the television or from internet, from the computer screen or whatever, they send a particular frequency which human eye cannot see and human ear cannot hear, but this frequency puts your brain in a certain state when any suggestion is accepted by you without any criticism. You can be convinced of anything when your brain is in that state. That is why watching television nowadays is downright dangerous. You are being attacked by psychotronic weaponry. They're using those weapons on you and they're planting ideas into your head. So people who are falling for the vegan and pro-vegetarian propaganda nowadays, they have been manipulated. Their minds have been manipulated. I got very interested in this subject quite a few years ago because I was working with young people with mental illness, and I started getting scores of people in their early 20s and late teens coming to me with obsessive compulsive disorder, with anxiety, with depression, with anorexia, who became ill because of vegetarianism and veganism. Before they've chosen this plant-based lifestyle, they were perfectly healthy kids. They destroyed themselves through vegetarianism and veganism. And that made me very interested in the whole subject. So the first thing I tried to do is to research what science there is on the subject. And I had to come to a conclusion after a thorough search that there isn't one scientific study in the world that can be trusted on this subject. Not one. All of them have been designed and funded by agrochemical complex with one purpose: to convince the world to become vegetarian and vegan. The most lying and untruthful and fake study is the China study. And the whole mainstream media is shaking that study into everybody's face, saying, here, this is the proof why we should all be vegetarian and vegan. That study has been completely incorrectly designed, incorrectly conducted. The data has been manipulated and incorrectly analyzed. But of course, the population has no way of analyzing that, of assessing that for themselves. They just believe what's in the newspapers and what on television. So, for having discovered that science has nothing to offer in this subject, I went to basic sciences, to the science of physiology, how human body works, how zoology works, science of physics helped me a lot as well, and clinical practice. What do doctors see in their clinics? My own clinic practice and clinical practice of other colleagues around the world that I know who work holistically, holistic doctors. And what I've discovered and what I understood is this. Human body is fed and nourished and maintained, the physical structure you live in, only by animal foods. Let me repeat this. Animal foods are feeding and building for the human body. Plants do not feed us. I'll explain why. The reason for it is the way the human digestive system has been designed. It is a biochemical fact, a microbiological fact that we've known from 1930s, that the only creatures on our planet who can digest plant matter are microbes, microbial communities. No other creature on the planet can digest plants. None. Mother Nature used this fact in creating a digestive system of herbivorous animals: cows, goats, giraffe, antelope, deer, and so on. These animals have 3, 4 huge stomachs full of microbes. They are called rumen. The whole stomach system is called rumen. A cow has an enormous 3 stomachs full of microbes. Because remember, only microbes can digest plant matter. So the cow doesn't digest the grass herself. It's the microbes in her rumen that do this work for her. We human beings do not have a rumen. We have a small stomach which produces hydrochloric acid. Acidity in your stomach can be below 2, below 1 pH when we're hungry. Very hostile environment for any microbe to survive. That is why human stomach, and I mean in the English language a lot of people get confused, because in the English language stomach can mean the whole belly. Right? No, what I mean is the organ of stomach that when you swallow food and it goes down the pipe, that's where it lands first. A small organ in the upper part of your part of your abdomen, of your belly, stomach. So it is so acidic. It is the least populated part of your digestive system. It's virtually sterile. There's only a few microbes that can survive there. This means because plants can only be digested by microbes, this means that plants are indigestible for the human stomach. But hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and other elements of the stomach juice in a human being are perfectly designed to digest meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. So these are the things that get digested, broken down, and then the whole mixture moves into several meters of intestines where absorption of food happens. And the only things that can be absorbed are things that have been properly digested, higher up in the stomach. And this again are only meat, fish, eggs, and dairy, animal foods. Plants do not digest in your stomach, they just sit there waiting. They do not digest or absorb in your intestines to any large degree. They contribute some juices, they contribute some minerals, some cofactors, but the bulk of what your body is made from, protein and fat, they cannot contribute. Human body is about 70% water. That's by weight. By molecular count, it's more than 90%. So most of you is water. When we take water out of your body, what's left, the dry weight, is 50-50 protein and fat. This is what you're made of. When we analyze human protein and fat in a laboratory, we find that in their biochemical composition, they are very similar to proteins and fats which come from meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Plants have lots of fats, lots of proteins, but their biochemical composition is completely inappropriate to make our protein and our fat, to build our human bodies. Lots of amino acids are missing, other amino acids are in excess, and the fats are all polyunsaturated, which are inappropriate for our physiology. So as a result, plants cannot build your body. The most researched protein from plants is gluten. And even, the most lay person now knows that name, knows that word gluten, because the more we research that protein, the more we realize that no human being on this planet can digest it. It damages everybody. And there are lots and lots of other plants, proteins in plants, which are indigestible for the human digestive system and which damage us, because we need microbes to break these things down for us. So plants cannot give you protein and they cannot give you fat appropriate for building your physical structure. Your heavy bones, your muscle mass, your big skin, your big heart, your big brain, your big liver, the rest of your organs. All of these organs require large amounts of the right quality protein, the right quality fat to maintain their physical structure, because human body renews itself all the time. It's not cast in stone. It's made out of cells, and every cell has a short life. It gets old, worn out, it dies, and the body gives birth to a new baby cell to replace it. So your body is constantly giving birth to trillions of new baby cells in every organ and tissue to maintain your physical structure, to replenish, to replace dying cells, and to heal any damage. In order to give birth to trillions of cells every day, building materials are required: protein and fat and water and cofactors. And the only foods that can provide you with the right quality protein and the right quality fat are meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. So these are the only foods that feed humans. Plants do not feed us. So why do we eat plants at all? We eat plants because they give us variety, colors, flavors, fun, to add to our food, spices in particular, and they give us cleansing substances. Plants are very powerful cleansers. They keep your body clean on the inside, but they do not feed human body. And I will tell you more if you want to hear more. I have been
Please carry on.
I have been working with very difficult patients from all over the world. And some 10, 15 years ago, a group of mothers contacted me from the United States of America who had babies with a new so-called new condition, new diagnostic label called FPIES. This is food-induced protein enterocolitis syndrome. These are little exclusively breastfed babies, a few weeks old, vomiting, diarrhea, vomiting, diarrhea, vomiting, diarrhea. The child is not putting weight on, the child is losing weight, the child is dying, basically. Doctors do testing, find that the child is allergic to all proteins on the planet. So the parents' breastfeeding stops at that point. The child is put on synthetic formula and told that the parents are told not to give the child any protein at all, just give him some boiled carrots or something. These children, if they follow the mainstream advice, develop profound mental and physical disabilities, and large percent of them die. Very, very damaged. So when these parents contacted me, I work with the GAPS diet. I'm the creator of the GAPS nutritional protocol. And I understand that the more the human digestive system is damaged, the less it can handle plant matter. Plants are difficult to digest. They have a lot of anti-nutrients, a lot of substances which damage the human digestive system. So in order to digest plant matter at all, you have to have pretty much a cast iron, very healthy digestive system. They're indigestible. The more the digestive system is damaged, more digestive problems you have, and the more severe these problems are, the less you are able to digest plant matter and handle plant matter, the more it has to be removed. So what I tried first with these babies, I put them on the first stage of the GAPS introduction diet, where we eat virtually no plant matter. We eat only a few well-cooked vegetables, no starch at all, no grains, no beans, nothing, only a few well-cooked vegetables. That wasn't enough. So the next step was to remove all plant matter altogether. So we did that. We put children exclusively on animal foods. They ate nothing out of plant kingdom at all, these babies, and their mothers too. So as a result, children started recovering. Vomiting stopped, diarrhea stopped, we started growing, we started putting weight on, we started developing. I now have a large cohort of these children all over the world who are developing beautifully, very healthy, beautiful children. But it takes us 4 years minimum to be able to introduce the tiniest amount of a cooked courgette. And sometimes we have to ferment it first to pre-digest it, to use microbes outside our body to digest that plant matter for us. And then we cook it, and only then we introduce it into the child's diet. And even that can bring the diarrhea back, set the child back. So it takes us years to heal the digestive system before the child can start eating a little bit of vegetable matter, a little bit of plant matter. But the fact is that these children thrive, not only recover from their predicament, their digestive system recovers, their mental states recover, they start putting weight on, they start developing, and they develop as healthy, beautiful children. For many years, they live entirely on meat, fish, eggs, and fermented dairy. Not a leaf, not a speck out of plant kingdom is consumed. So these children have demonstrated to me a fact. And facts are very stubborn things. You cannot argue with facts. A fact that human beings can live perfectly well without eating plants at all, living entirely on animal foods. In parallel, I had a few children with ulcerative colitis, and I tried the same strategy with them. They recovered. All inflammatory markers disappeared. The diagnosis of ulcerative colitis has been taken away. The child is just thriving. playing sports, developing beautiful children. And then I've got a lot of adults with severe mental illnesses and autoimmune illnesses who have chosen the same form. This diet now is called no plant gaps diet. No plants are consumed at all. And many of them have been on this planet for 6-7 years now. They're doing so well. They don't have any desire to reintroduce plants.
Okay,
So all
I
of
have a question here. Okay, we're talking about animal, proteins, etc. Okay, I don't know whether you've come across, but I have it in front of me on my screen, and I will share it with you maybe after the interview. There is this thing called 2030 agenda, and then there is another one called 2050 agenda. According to the 2030 agenda, as far as the food goes, it says here the national consumption of beef and lamb drops by 50%, along with the reduction in frozen ready meals and air freight food imports. For the 2050 agenda, it says beef and lamb phased out, along with all imports not transported by train, fertilizer use greatly reduced. So they kind of the agenda they have. They want to reduce the lamb, the sheep, and the beef cows, okay, by 50%.
Yeah.
How are people going to feed?
That's what I was talking about. That is what I was talking about. That is
No, but
they have achieved their plans of feeding the whole world with chemical food, and now their plan is to feed everybody synthetic meat, synthetic milk, and synthetic eggs. And for that, they need
we are here to provide some kind of solution or something, or at least in our what we advice we can give to the people who are listening. Okay.
Yeah. First of
So
all,
what do you think?
no.
Two questions here. How far do you think that they will be able to succeed? And secondly, what solutions should people consider as alternative in trying to make sure that they do have some meat on their table?
Support real farmers. There are hundreds of them in the UK. Real, very good, honest, decent, loving people who are doing their utter best to produce the best quality food for you. Support them. That means stop giving your money to supermarkets. Supermarkets are agrochemical industrial complex. Every penny you spend in a supermarket goes to those people who are destroying the world, who own all the corporations. They have got their own organic biodynamic farms. They eat meat every day. They and their families and their cronies. They have no intentions, and they've been eating organic. They don't eat their chemical stuff. They would not put their synthetic meat into their mouths or the mouths of their families. Absolutely not.
True.
All of these people, all of this super wealthy so-called elite of the world, they are behind all of this. So say no to that. And the first thing to do in order to say no to that is stop going to supermarkets. Find real farmers. Yes, it's a bit of an effort. Yes, it takes some organization. Yes, it takes some driving about, going to the farms and buying things directly from the farmers. But if we do that, the more farmers we can sustain and support in this way, the more other farmers will look at them to see that those farmers are thriving, and they will adopt the same practices. A lot of farmers who are trapped in the industrial complex would love to go organic, but they are so in debt. They are so trapped because these agrochemical complexes and these agrochemical companies, they're so clever. They have trapped those farmers in such a vicious cycle of debt that they are forever in debt to them, and they can hardly keep their heads above the water. They all asset rich, which means that on paper they've got all this land, and because the land is expensive nowadays, so they, on paper, they're rich, but in their pocket they've got nothing. These farmers.
True.
Because they're selling their produce for pittance, literally. They're working very hard, and they've got nothing. They have no cash in their pockets. And they would love to go organic. They would love to do the right thing to their soils. I've met a lot of industrial farmers around our area, and they're all elderly. Most of them. There aren't many young people in farming nowadays. And they say that when I was a boy, there were worms in my soil, and everything grew without chemicals. Now, if I don't put chemicals on my soil, nothing will grow at all. Because he destroyed his soil with all those chemicals.
True.
Soil is a microbial community. It is a complex microbial community. Every time you plow, every time you till, every time you apply chemicals, you kill all of those microbes. So soil turns into a dead dust, which cannot support any life, and it cannot hold any water. Why do you think we're having all this flooding, increasing flooding every year? Because above that town and village that got flooded this year, some industrial farmer has destroyed fields of soil. Because soil, healthy soil, when there is a microbial community in there, has a substance called humus, which is a carbon polymer which holds almost 100 times its weight in water. So when it rains, these fields literally swell like a sponge. They absorb all the water and they hold it. They don't let go of it. But if that soil got destroyed by chemicals and by plowing and tilling, the soil is dead, it cannot hold water. That all that rain just washes off from the fields and floods a village or a town downstream. That's why we have all that flooding. And the rivers and the streams are supposed to run clear. The water is supposed to be crystal clear running when there is humus in those fields. Because humus holds all that water, the soil holds all the dust, holds all the particles, and the water trickles out clean, it filters out. The whole field becomes a filter, a magnificent filter, which actually neutralizes all the acid rain, neutralizes all the toxins in the rain that might be there, all the toxins. So the water runs clean into the rivers and the streams. Now what you see when it rains, the rivers and the streams are brown. What is that? The soil is being washed away because it's dead. There are no microbes, there is no humus. And humus is the biggest reservoir of carbon on our planet. Every time we plow, every time we apply chemicals, we release carbon to the air. Industrial arable agriculture is the #1 cause of all that carbon in the atmosphere. And methane too, because nitrogen fertilizers that they use, very large % of those nitrogen fertilizers turn into methane and finish up also in the atmosphere. The global warming, whether it exists or not, all that carbon up in the atmosphere and all that methane is caused by arable industrial agriculture from nitrogen fertilizers, plowing, and chemicals. That is the #1 cause of this problem. And industrial agriculture, of course, these agrochemical companies and all this so-called elite that's behind it, they put out this ridiculous lie that cows are farting and burping and causing methane accumulation in the atmosphere. It's just hilarious that anybody would even seriously discuss such a thing. Methane in the atmosphere comes from nitrogen fertilizers, and it comes from tips around the cities, you know, the rubbish tips, because the fermentation that's going on there releases methane. That's about 1/4 of all methane release in the world comes from those things. And industry, a lot of industry releases a lot of methane. It's not farting cows. This planet had thousands times more herbivorous animals. The herds of buffalo that used to roam across North America was so large. When Europeans first came to America, they described these herds literally stretching to horizon. They did not see the end of them. The herds of zebra and antelope in Africa used to be huge, enormous. Now they've reduced dramatically. You think that if all those herbivorous animals that used to exist hundreds of years ago, all those herds, if they were all belching and farting, why wasn't global warming developing in those days? It's a complete and utter nonsense. Nitrogen fertilizers, that's where methane comes from. And humus, destroyed humus in the soil, that's where carbon comes from in the atmosphere.
Okay. I think I've run out of questions. Do you have any last thoughts? And secondly, how can people actually go and find your work and your websites or your Twitter address, etc.?
Well, I'd like to finish on a positive. 9 years ago, we bought a piece of land which was very damaged by industrial agriculture. We literally had no soil here. We tried to plant some trees in the first year. We couldn't dig the soil. It was all clay and flint. There was no topsoil whatsoever on the farm because chemicals were used here for 100 years. before us. Now, after only 9 years, our farm is a paradise. There is lots of soil, everything is growing, and I have some 100, 200 chickens running around with cockerels singing. You probably heard the cockerels singing in the background. And it's the animals and the chickens and the pigs and the cows and the goats that, with their excrements and their activities on the land, create topsoil. So what we're doing with our little farm, we are reversing global warming. Because every time we create topsoil, what is a topsoil? It's a microbial community. Where does this microbial community come from? It comes out of the rumen of these animals and birds. It's their excrements that inoculate the soil with that microbial community. And that microbial community then spreads in the soil and creates its own networks and its own web of life in there. And once the microbial community starts going, it creates humus. And remember, humus is a carbon polymer, and it's a very stable carbon polymer. It holds carbon in the soil for hundreds of years. So we're capturing carbon out of the atmosphere and returning it back into the soil where it belongs. The more of these kind of little farms there are in the world, the more hope our planet has. So I encourage everyone to have some chickens in your back garden, to create a no-dig garden. We practice no-dig gardening, where we don't dig, we don't disturb the soil. We just keep piling compost on top of the soil and planting into that compost. It's very simple and it's a beautiful process. Digging is a hard work. Who wants to dig anyway? So no-dig gardening is the way to go, definitely. So I encourage everyone to start producing your own food. Even on your windowsill in an apartment in a city, you can have a few pots and start growing something. And maybe start planning to move out of the city and start perhaps having a garden and have a few chickens. Chickens are so easy. They just share pleasure, share joy, have to have. And the quality of eggs that they will produce for you, you will not find anywhere. Because the love that you would put into those chickens. Remember, I was talking about the fact that food is information. What kind of information do you take into your body when you eat food from a supermarket? You take information, vibration of suffering, pain, greed, grief, destruction. How can such information make you healthy? When you go and find a real organic farmer who loves his land, loves his animals, and you visit the farm and you see these happy chickens running around and you see these happy animals, healthy, happy, on pasture, all of them, and happy soil, heaving with life and growing very, very well. The information that you will put into your body from eating that food from that farm will be the information of love, vibration of love. And love will bring you good health and bring you joy and bring you vitality to the whole family. So remember that food is information.
Sure.
Be careful what you put into your mouth. Be very, very careful and support and buy from good people. If you cannot start producing your own food, of course, not everybody can do that. I understand that. At least buy it from people who do care, people who do love it, instead of supporting the global elite, which are just interested in, all they're interested in is having golden toilets underneath themselves. That's all they're interested in, it seems. Okay, so I've written several books. I have a website called gaps.me, where you will find more information, gaps.me. I have a blog called drnatasha.com, and my books are available online.
Thank you very, very much. Yeah. I will put the link in for your website and your Twitter account as well, and to the gaps.me. Thank you very much.
That's a pleasure.
And it's a pleasure to have you, and look forward to your next interview. I think we'll do the heart one next time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.